Good day everyone, especially to you Sir Jumerson. We are Group 5 and our topic is Acceptability Study of Montilla calabura, also known as Aratilis lean, as an alternative sweetener. Before we start, I am EJ Supremo and we would also like to introduce you my other members. First is Ian Joseph Lanterno, Altea Nicole Tanyala, Shaira Alaya Miranda, AC Angel Himaya, and Ezekiel Jan Lasara. So let's begin in our presentation.
Here is slide 2. We can see the presentation outline. First, we have the title and group name. So as we see in the first slide, you will see our title or the topic of our research followed with the group member name under the title. Next is the introduction and followed by the RRL or also known as Review Related Literature. Third is SOTP or Statement of the Problem. And fourth is Research Design. Next is Materials and Methods. 6. Procedure of that study. 7. Presentation of data, and last is findings, conclusion, and recommendations. The next slide will be introduced by Ms. Shaira Miranda.
In this slide, we will introduce our introduction. The Montilla calabura lean fruit is more vitamin-rich than sugar and is recognized to include micronutrients that support or advance cell health, including vitamin B, calcium, phosphorus, and iron. It also contains anthocyanin, flavonoids, and polyphenol, which can lower blood sugar and prevent diabetes. It also contains fiber, water, carbs, protein, calcium, and phosphorus for strong bones, iron for anemia, and B vitamins for vitality and good mood. Aratilis is rich in antioxidants, which protect our bodies by removing free radicals, which damage our cells. Eating aratilis in small amounts might be generally safe, but refrain from using them to treat diabetes mellitus without your doctor's approval. And that is the summary of our introduction. Now let's proceed to the next slide that will discuss by Mr. Lanterno.
Review related literature. In this slide, we put one study, each in local and foreign. In local, according to Lisan Maria Isabel, 2019, Montilla calabura from the Philippines is rich in phytochemicals with potent antioxidant activity and anti-hypertensive properties. It can be used as functional food, phytomedicine, nutraceutical, and health supplement source. That is the summarization of that study. And now proceed to the foreign literature. So, according to Yuwali and Papron et al. 2022, Montilla calabura fruit contains a variety of bioactive components, including phenolic components, antioxidants, and sugar. It is cheap, plentiful, and doesn't need pre-treatment hydrolysis. And that will be the summarization of that study in foreign literature. Next slide will be discussed by Mr. Ezekiel Lasara.
Now, let's proceed on our SOTP or Statement of the Problem. Here are the problems in our research that we need to answer. Number 1. Will aratilis function as an alternative sweetener? Number 2. Is there an advantage or disadvantage in making aratilis as an alternative sweetener? Number 3. What makes aratilis the best fruit for being an alternative sweetener? Number 4. How effective does aratilis as an alternative sweetener compared to the other types of sweeteners?
In this slide, we have our research design. The methodology employed in this study followed a quantitative experimental research design which emphasized the use of numerical and consistent data and convergent reasoning, as opposed to divergent reasoning. This research design allows for focus and in-depth analysis of the data, as well as the identification of relationships and patterns within collected information. The researchers' chosen sort of research strategy for the study was a quantitative experimental one. This strategy is ideal because the outcomes of the study will only be dependent on numerical and constant data. Since they would be turning the Aratilis fruit into a new product, the researchers have decided that their methodology was experimental. The fact that all of the outcomes are expressed in numerical form has also led the researchers to conclude that they use a quantitative technique. Mr. Lanterno will introduce the upcoming slides.
Now, let's proceed to the material and tools that we use to create the product. First is the Aratilis, which is the main component of our product. Second is marble mortar for crushing the Aratilis fruit. Third is water for boiling. Fourth is the cooking pot for us to cook the crushed Aratilis fruit. And last is soup ladle. This is used for mixing the Aratilis that we boiled. For the procedure of the study, the first step is Step 1. Prepare a glass of water by heating it in the cooking pot. The first procedure for making an Aratilis into an alternative sweetener is to get a glass of warm water and fill a pot with water, then heat it until it reaches the desired temperature. Second step is Step 2. Crush the Aratilis fruit and add it to the boiling pot. Take the Aratilis fruit and mash it using a marble mortar. Once you have done that, add the mashed Aratilis fruit to a pot that is already boiling. For the third step, Step 3. Stir it with the soup ladle in 2 minutes to make it thicker. In order to thicken it, stir the mixture with a soup ladle for a duration of 2 minutes. And the last step, Step 4. Boil it for 5 minutes, then cool it down. To create an alternative sweetener, boil the mixture for 5 minutes, then allow it to cool. This simple process will result in a sweetener that can be used as a substitute. And now, we will proceed to the next slide that will be discussed by Mr. Superman.
In this slide, we will see the data that we present, as you can see. This table shows the overall total of grade 12 respondents of this study in terms of weighted mean and verbal interpretation. In question 1, the weighted mean is 3.93 and the verbal interpretation was very satisfactory. In question 2, the weighted mean is 3.84 and the verbal interpretation was also very satisfactory. In question 3, the weighted mean is 3.9 and the verbal interpretation was very satisfactory. In question 4, the weighted mean is 4.12 and the verbal interpretation was also very satisfactory. In question 5, the weighted mean is 4 and the verbal interpretation was also very satisfactory. In question 6, the weighted mean is 3.59 and the verbal interpretation was also very satisfactory. In question 7, the weighted mean is 3.37 and the verbal interpretation was satisfactory. In question 8, the weighted mean is 3.62 and the verbal interpretation was very satisfactory. In question 9, the weighted mean is 3.87 and the verbal interpretation was also very satisfactory. In question 10, the weighted mean is 3.43 and the verbal interpretation was also very satisfactory. In question 11, the weighted mean is 3.65 and the verbal interpretation was also very satisfactory. In question 12, the weighted mean is 3.39 and the verbal interpretation was satisfactory. And lastly, the overall average of weighted mean is 3.73 and the verbal interpretation was very satisfactory. Now we will proceed to the next slide that Ms. Miranda will discuss.
Findings, conclusion, and recommendation. Let's start with the findings. As you can see in this slide, this will be the summarized answer to SOTP of this research. The number 1 findings. According to the responses given by every participant, the oral explanation was very satisfactory, indicating that it was highly endorsed by the respondents. Number 2, aratilis are naturally sweet, providing the access to an available supply without additional cost, but trial and error is necessary to achieve desired results. Number 3, aratilis provides the same level of sugar sweetness as other sweeteners, with a satisfactory texture and pleasant aroma. Number 4, aratilis offers potential benefits as a natural sweetener and is a better choice than artificial sweeteners, with respondents preferring it over their everyday sweeteners. And now the next slide will be discussed by Mr. Himaya.
And now, let's proceed to the conclusion. The aratilis fruit has the ability to be an alternative sweetener and is accepted by respondents. It is not as effective as sugar in terms of appearance and taste, but can replace it in certain foods or drinks. And that will be the summarized conclusion of this research. For the recommendation slide, Ms. Tanyala will be the one to enumerate it.
For the last part of this presentation, here are the recommendations. Recommendation 1. The researchers recommend improving the procedure of the product. They recommend trying the hand mixer. It may have a different result than the homemade procedure. Recommendation 2. The researchers also recommend that when storing the aratilis fruit as an alternative sweetener, it should not be placed on plastic bags because it will be smoothed out in a couple of days. Recommendation 3. The researchers also recommend storing the aratilis fruit as an alternative sweetener in a room temperature for experimentation only. Recommendation 4. The researchers also recommend trying it on hot beverage or foods because one respondent has said that it has worked on green tea. Recommendation 5. The researchers also recommend trying to find a different source of aratilis fruit other than Pampanga, Philippines for more options of sources. Recommendation 6. The researchers also recommend that try taking it to a lab that can test the safety, benefits, disadvantage for health and contents of the aratilis fruit.
And that's all for our presentation. Thank you for your attention, everyone. God bless you all.